Hello, selectors, and welcome to another episode of the LifeBurst podcast, where we're going to talk about the decks to upgrade for VERTEX DIVA. Now, you're going to notice I'm not upgrading all of them. I did that last one, and it took forever. And also, I don't think a lot of them were worth upgrading in the long run. So I decided to take what was performing well in the recent ceremonies and only upgrade those ones. So these are only what are currently popular in the US meta as it stands with Vortex Diva. I will go over a little bit about the deck for each of them in case we have some new people who are joining, which we have a fair amount of new people who are joining. But again, if you want to see these decks as they've evolved, you can always check out the sample deck playlist and watch the original no limit list that has grown and grown and grown up until what we have now. So here's what I would take as my first things of testing, and these are just a jump off point for you guys in order to move forward with the sort of metagame in the US. The first one is going to be Hirana. It's going to have some minor upgrades. Card Jockey is going to have a fair amount of upgrades. Uchu is going to have a mid amount of upgrades. Ray has a very limited amount of upgrades, and Bang has a very limited amount of upgrades as well. Just a little reminder as to what we're looking at here. So we've got Hirana goes to the top. Still a very good card, still going to be doing a lot of damage. I'm still running this as a no-limit specific team, although losing the no-limit ability is actually less difficult as life goes onwards. I currently have no reason to want to team break, and I have reasons to stay in the team, so therefore I'm not running a dream team with this right now. We're still going to run Hirana as an aggro deck. There's no other way to run it. We're going to want to run your normal sort of low curve attacking type of deck here. So you'll still see the weight of your stuff is going to be higher on the low end and lower on the top end. In fact, this is the lowest it's ever gotten for me. It's specifically like 8 level 3 cards, and that's about it. Moving right into what we're doing, we're pretty much keeping our main setup here. You should be using Glory Grow, you should be using Akino Rock, Akino Bye-Bye, Ray Flashblade, whether you want to use Ray Majesty, Ray or Ray Empty Blade or Ray Absolute Zero here for your Ray choice. That's really up to you. I still like Ray Empty Blade just to draw some more cards. I've gone back to go to the top here, and my reasoning is there's going to be, and you might avoid go to the top because of this, but there's going to be a lot of Xenocluster in the next format, but that's because there's going to be a lot of more Enterburn in the format, and I don't want No Limit to be out of the Enterburn loop as well. Since we're running cargo code ride, I felt like we're probably going to maybe have to worry about Enterburn anyways a little later down the line, so we might as well just lean into it with go to the top here. But that go to the top could be burning Curiosity and would be perfectly fine. Talking about our level 1s, I've gone down to 1 Ramel. I think it's fine to go down to 2 or 3 Ramels now instead of running the full 4 set, because there will be a lot of these 5,000 Signies floating around for a little while. But as blue solidifies a little later down in the meta, it always seems to be like aggro spikes at the front end of a meta and then control starts to solidify itself. I think you can consider going back up to the full 4 set of it. But right now, 3 seems to be the right number for me. Cargo. So Cargo, as I explained in the X deck, Cargo is a is not a enter screwing type of card. It is actually a color screwing type of card. So you're trying to screw the opponent's colors out with this. So you're punishing cards for playing that, or decks for playing that 3rd color, or you're punishing them for not leaving the correct amount of their 2nd color up for their assist Elrigs. Otherwise, we're also running the new version of Sita. This is a level 1 5,000 power that vanishes 8,000 or less on the opponent's side of the field with its life burst. And then 2 Percival. Again, Percival is just one of those good cards. It's still a 5,000, still a double enter, something that you're interested in on level 1, and run 4 of your guards. We're running a full set of Moroks, Crimson Evil, and Lancelots, and then we're running two R lights. This R light could be really anything. I still believe you should probably have some amount of white in the deck in order to run Akino Bye Bye. And I wouldn't. There's been times where we've gone down to less than 6 white cards in our no limit deck because we haven't been enter burned punished, but we're in a format where Cargo Ride is going to exist and will punish us for it. And because we're running Cargo Ride and we're also running Go to the Top, we have a reason to run Moroks here, which will enter charge us as well when we attack if we enter burn the opponent. But we're mostly running it for its life burst ability. The fact that we can vanish out a Signy on the opponent's field unless they pay enter is fantastic, and it should help you get over the fact that it's going to be a little bit difficult to scale some walls with this deck later in the game. I chose, again, our Rim Light because I just thought it was white. You could do Bow High Armed as another replacement if you wanted to get something that was more aggressive. And this is the level 3 spread that I'm doing. I'm still running 4 Rose Quartz. This is one of the reasons why I still think No Limit is pretty okay. Rose Quartz gets rid of level 3s. And that's something that red aggro decks seem to struggle with. So you're still running that. Katasuchi is just still an incredible card. It's got a very good life burst that's unusual in this. It's really solidified itself as a staple, as a 2-of. I like 2 Arcwane here. It's not the greatest, but the times that they are good is good, and the times that you need a little bit more filtering, it does the job. Deafening Inferno, because it's still fantastic in this type of deck. Killing 10,000s or less for a 1 red is fantastic. And then 2 Nobunaga and a Eternal Influence just to help with the end game problems that No Limit runs into. And this is going to be your deck. It's not much changed. It's pretty much the same as it always used to be. You're going to keep in going hyper aggro here. You're going to enter burn a little bit. You're going to screw with the opponent's hands a little bit with Ray. That's your version of disruption on the opponent while just being hyper aggro and pushing forward as much damage as possible. Your life bursts are swingy and meant to maximize that type of thing. I think this deck will fare a little worse as time goes on because I just think X is maybe a better version of this. But you still can use this on your first couple months of the P04 format and do a well job. It's hard to keep No Limit down. Let's talk about Ray. Ray blew up in the last ceremony, and it probably deserves to blow up because it is it's a wall breaker kind of deck, right? It breaks decks that want to run slow. The longer this stays on the field, the better it is for Ray. This is going to be still the normal Ray, which has the ability of, as long as you've drawn some extra cards this turn, you can go ahead and bottom an opponent's Signy, level 2 or less. And this has not really changed in the slightest. If you notice, this deck is pretty much exactly the same as the original version of the deck. There was at one point in time that I was running a little bit of an Angel sort of sub-package in this, and it was fine, but I just couldn't fit the right life bursts, and so it was awkward, so I defaulted back to this. I think at some point you cut the Regicluses, but I don't think that part is today or now. But otherwise, this is still the same kind of deck that you've been running before. Nothing has changed in it. Your level 1s, or your Elrig slots are still absolutely the same. Glory Grow, Song of Wixoss to help you get a little bit into the late game, as well as Song of Wixoss goes really well with Ray's once a game ability, where you draw a bunch of cards and then instead of discarding them at the end of your turn, you just force the opponent to discard some cards. Nothing's changed there. You still are running Hirana Stampin' and Akino Bye Bye as a good way to not super defend yourself long term, but have a little bit more defense than the average aggro deck does. Your level 1 slots, Haniels, are there to find you some good level 2s, mostly, but they're mostly there to filter your late game. Same thing with the Regiclus is here to filter your late game. Bronze is one of your natural ways to get yourself red enter. Same thing with your 4 guards. They're just staples. We're still running Gagiel in order to turn on Firefly Squids. Lancelots as a 3-of because you got so much filtering that you can get Lancelots every time you need them and then not have them when you don't need them. We have one card that's new, and this is the only new card of the deck. It's Bruno Azure General. So we're replacing out basically the Hijikatas with Bruno. Hijikata was always awkward because you needed to vanish an opponent's Signy, and this deck has access to a lot of removal. You're basically always wiping their field every turn, and because it triggers on attack no matter what, it doesn't matter if it vanishes a Signy, then that means your opponent's always going to discard a card. So it's good ways to mess with your opponent's cards, draw a few cards of your own if you need to trigger some certain things, and just get the tempo game going. But of course, we're also running the usual package that we were running in Ray, 3 Rose Quartz, because again, we have enough filtering that we'll get enough when we need it. Firefly Squid, because it's fantastic in this deck, and making the opponent's discard cards is one of the ways that we give them disruption. Nobunaga, because with Ray, you almost always guarantee that you will have a lane open, so Nobunaga's Double Crush becomes very powerful. A little bit more removal with Deafening Inferno, and then a little bit more card draw with Thrilling, depending on exactly what you need in order to push forward your last bits of damage. So Ray, pretty much the same. Only difference here is that we're running a Bruno now. MC Lion Aggro. I have been convinced that this is an aggro deck from ReplayWorks, but I haven't been super convinced it needs Ramels. But I will open this discussion up for everyone. If you want to play this more aggressively, and you do not care that you will be missing out on a VJ Wolf reverb, then you can change the Triumph to 4 copies of Ramel. If you really wanted to, you could also do 2 Triumph and 2 Ramels. I would not fault you on that. It seems like a pretty good plan on my opinion over here. So I think this is pretty much the deck that you want to run. There's not very much difference other than you cut a few Arcwane, cut a few level 2s to get in some Exias here. Now, Exias might be the opposite of aggro. So if you wanted to change those Exias for pin lights, you could theoretically do so. This is the same type of MC Lion deck that you're going to be normally playing with, which, just for those people who are new to the channel, this is where you are filtering out your level 1s and your level 2s as fast as possible so that you can play Endless Punchline and win the game in a big old combo at Riffic I attacked a million times. DJ Love at Scratchable and DJ Love at Crossfade, it does the job of crushing life cloths for you and getting things open. I'm still not on the boat of double scratch or scratch times 2, which gives double crush. I'm not a huge fan of it. I still think that it's too much eggs in one basket kind of deal, so I like scratch. And VJ Wolf Laser, VJ Wolf Reverb, this is just the only Wolf options of choice here. VJ Wolf Reverb, 90% of the time you're playing it for 1 enter to take 1 less damage, and that's about it. Silent Assassin is my second piece of choice. It's expensive, but in my experience if you do not win the game when you play Endless Punchline, when you follow it up with the next turn with Silent Assassin, you will win the game. That's been my overall theme. I'm maybe the only one still championing this theme. I've seen a lot of people run Burning Curiosity instead. And that totally is fine too. Burning Curiosity gives you at least 1 more damage. I like that Silent Assassin gives me 2 damage. I know it's way more expensive, but it's one of my reasons for running it. Again, Endless Punchline here, if you read the card, it's a very interesting wordage card, but it basically says that if you've successfully filtered out your level 1s and your level 2s, so your deck is mostly stacked with level 3s, then in spells, you will be able to attack 3 times with your Elrig. Again, we talked about this is just Haniel's your way to filter out your draws. You're going to be doing that very early on. Even its Life Burst helps you filter. Zhao just gives you a sticky Signy. And the Triumph, if you wanted to lean into more aggro games, you could replace that with Ramel, and you'd be perfectly fine. I don't know if the full set of Ramel is correct, because you still want some amount of white level 1 Signies for you to enter off of Laser Wolf. That's my experience. We're just running 4 Lancelots. I used to be running some Ishikiri Marus, but it does not matter in this deck. We switched that Ishikiri Maru over to Exida, and I think Exida is still the right call here. 2 Komes. I know that number seems small in a deck where you could have 4 Komes and attack up to 4 times. Wow! But it still is only 2. It's just a late game option to help you win the game. But theoretically speaking, you should be hoping that you win the game when you punchline. Arcwane has gone down to 2 of, but I think that's the bare minimum you need in order to pull off the amount of filtering you need. I think Projection Map will get the job done. Again, that's another reason why you want your white level 1 Signies to be level 1 white Signies, is because Projection Map grabs them. And I think Projection Map is more blatantly powerful than Arcane. I like Exida. Exida is just a good card to throw in here. Again, I appreciate the fact that it can help you win a little bit of a longer game, and I think it's just an incredible Signy on its own. So this is what my main upgrade for this deck is, but you could make the argument that Exa is too slow for this to be an aggro deck, in which case I hear you, and you could replace it with some kind of more aggro choice. I've gone to 3 Deafening Infernos, 2 Eternal Influences. I think that's pretty much the same. It's all just ways to open up lanes. Again, you're an aggro deck, so you're looking for ways to open up lanes, and this is a way that you can get your Endless Punchline off and open up lanes. And 4 Good Digs. I still don't want to go any lower than 4 Good Digs. I know some people use Miracle Draw to do it, and I'd rather exceed on other things. I like Good Dig here for its early game ability of being able to just fix your hands, because sometimes you end up with a lack of level 1s in your hand at opening turns, and this is a good way to fix that. I like its Life Burst, and I also think with Map, with 2 of Arcwanes, with 4 Haniels, you have a solid filtering core that will allow you to Endless Punchline correctly every time. All right, we've got 2 more to go here. We've got Bang, actually 3 technically. We've got Bang Midrange. This is still the Dream Team that I had prior to it. It is the most evolved version that I've had when I've played it a little bit into set 3. So I still think it's the correct move to play this type of deck here, where you're adding in red so you can really be more of a Stompy-esque kind of deck, but you still want to play some amount of blue in order to get some card draw, as well as run Ancient Echo. And this is the overall deck. There's not a ton of new things that I've added to it other than Newton, which is really only a minor, very, very minor upgrade to the deck, as well as I've just made the Sita a better version of Sita. Let's get into it. So I still think Scratch Crossfade, it's more realistic here that you're actually going to use Crossfade for all it's worth, because you will be Energizing a lot with your Bang. Bang, by the way, I know that I don't have it on here. Bang gives you Lancer on your level 3 green Signies, as well as Energize, more or less. And you want to rush to get to your level 2s with your assists so you can enable that. Ancient Echo is a good way to just get some more damage in across while simultaneously drawing some cards. And the power buff does matter sometimes. I still think you should be running End of Turn in this deck, even though there's an argument to be made for Xenocluster, with the fact that there will be more discard and more Enter Burn in this format. But I like that End of Turn can get you some resiliency and redundancy in your level 3 green slot, as well as the fact that it can save you on some life damage, and the deck's weakness is getting aggroed down. Getting right to it, let's talk about the level 1s. Still running 4 Pandatas. You got that Terra Beast combo that's going to be in this deck. You have 2 Parajulius. You could go up more if you want to, but I think 2 is still the right number, because Parajulius is really only fantastic turn 3 and onwards in this deck. And you have 6 new versions of Sita. You can see them here in Japanese, and I'll skip over to them actually here. This Phantom Dragon has the same Sita Life Burst, but it has the upgrade of being a 5,000 powered level 1 Signy. And the Tasmanian Phantom Beast here has the upside of being, 1, a Terra Beast, which matters, but 2, it's also got Life Burst, vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with power 7,000 or more. I think it's kind of a nice little side grade, giving you more Terra Beasts to work with, and Terra Beasts like Team Pump. You know who else is like Team Pump? Lancer. So that's the reason that I run these in here. We got Tengu Zaru. Again, this is one of those cards where it really appreciates getting Team Pumps, and this is one of the few decks right now where in this format we have enough power spread across things that we can give it Assassin if we need to. Very rare otherwise, but you'll be seeing more Dream Teams, which means you're going to be seeing more Madoka Claps, which means that Tengu's going to be a little bit better because it can't be downed by your opponent's effects. Lancelot, again, being a solid card here, you're still running the 4 of. And Sheeran, just to give a little bit more enter charge. This will turn on Parajulius a little earlier too in the deck, which I think is important. And then our level 3s, again, every single one of them is green, so that way we can turn on Lancer for our bang. That's our goal here, is that our level 1s are going to be aggro. Our level 2 is going to be like a little bit aggressive, but probably better in the later game aggressive. And then our level 3s are just going to be big chonkers that can absorb damage and then also brawl with the best of them. So imagine yourself as a linebacker and just shoving yourself through every lane possible. And that's what we're going to run. Osaka Getsune, again, is going to work fantastically with Bang because it enter charges. Newton also enter charges now as well, which is important. Newton's got a weird thing where you want it to enter with your Elrig field being odd, and then you want the auto ability to go off on the field being even. So it's a little bit of weirdness to keep in mind. That the 3 number on there might not be great. It might be better to have it as like a 1 of, and then run Quinn as a 2 of. But this is what I'm going to be testing with, at least on the first jump of things. Fennec has a combo with the Terra Beast Buffalo, where you basically play the Buffalo and then you play Fennec, and then you're going to be able to use Buffalo's ability on Fennec immediately. And plus it enter charges, which is always great. And the amino acid actually becomes a little bit better in this next set because the souls give negative in Deus. So getting around that with amino is actually kind of good. Plus it gives a team buff, so it's a honorary it's an honorary Terra Beast for what it's worth. We're running Deafening Inferno and Buffalo at the top end. Nothing's changed here. Buffalo, again, is a weird one where you need to play it and then play a bunch of Terror Beasts in order to pump things up. And then it has the ability to vanish things on your opponent's attack phase, which means it gets around Exa. So it's a very, very good card. And its value goes up as time goes on. So while it was pretty cute prior, it is now actually a very decent card choice, and something you might even consider in other red decks moving forward. That's our Bang update. Let's talk about Nova. Nova Control is no different than it ever was. Nova Control stays absolutely the same. Nothing's changed. I have Tamago beating there. It's actually supposed to be Tamago draw, the draw 2. Tamago double stroke. That's just a copy-paste error. Then everything's changed. The only difference is I've tried to stuff 2 Exida in it, and it's got Life Burst, and this deck is pretty tight on its Life Bursts. So I ended up taking away a Typo, and I ended up taking away a Focalore, and tried to hope. It becomes a little bit more difficult to put up the Wall of Nova when you're missing 2 cards out of the Wall of Nova now. That makes it so strong. Instead, I put a Bruno in there. The Bruno is there just to... It's there to interact with opponents, but if you need to keep the Wall of Nova up, maybe it turns into Enter for you. Otherwise, the deck stays the same. You are putting up level 1s that are difficult to interact with, level 2s that are difficult to interact with, and then you're jamming your value level 3s in there to ensure that you can get some damage in, and you don't really win the game by attacking. You win the game by making the opponent run out of cards in hand, and then there's a natural lane opening, and then you eventually win. Demeter is your only way to make the clock go a little faster. So again, everything's the same here. DeCapo is incredibly strong. It still will stay strong because it can prevent a lot of damage. Tamago Jet Stick is going to be able to down things with Lancer. It's going to be able to down things with Double Crush. Your Hand Pie Destruction, you're almost always using turn 3 to strip the opponent's hand down to 0 when possible. So that way you will have open lanes later. End of turn is a 50% save a Life Burst by saving one of my Signy from a removal spell, or it turns into a Demeter or a Fenrir or a Kome later in the game to get you some extra damage. Again, your level 1 slots are a little weaker now that we're down to 3 typos, but I think that's better in the long run. We're running Water Buffalo because it covers all of our colors that we need it to, plus it kind of balances out a little bit with the fact that we need a little bit more blue in order to run Demeter. Again here, we've got the wall of Ishikiri Marus at least, a little less Focalores. I ran 3 in the ceremony, and it worked perfectly fine for me. so I don't think you need the full set of 4, but maybe we should revisit that depending on how aggressive the format is. And then Komai to be your damage output, Fenrir to help you in the control matchups and the other mid-range matchups, Demeter and Exida. Demeter helps you when you need to put a little bit of a clock out there, otherwise it's just meh. And then Exida helps you against aggro a little bit more. I think Exida helps one of the problems in this deck, which is it has a hard time being able to defend against damage when the assist Elrigs are now gone. So this enables that kind of thing. And then 4 random drain at the very end. We talked about Bruno. It's a good card. Nova Demons. Here's the interesting one I want to leave you guys with. Just to chew on quickly before I call it a day here. It basically runs a lot of the same things that you'd see in a normal Nova deck, but it runs Devil's Carnival. Devil's Carnival, it's important to talk about. Devil's Carnival is let's go ahead and skip right to the Devil's Carnival slide. Here we go. Put 2 of your demons from your field into the trash. If you do, during this game, you gain the following ability. Auto, at the end of your turn, target a demon Signy from your trash and add it to your hand. Okay, so we're building around this. This is the main card in the deck. Yes, you have Hampai Destruction, and that's a very cool card, but this is the main reason why you're going to want to run this. It basically lets you take your best Signy back from the trash every turn, always. And that can help seal the deal of the game for you. One of the ways that Nova loses, it does not have the ability to end the game well. So if you've been discarded and you're just only drawing level 1s, you could potentially get overrun that way. This way ensures that your wall is a lot more redundant. So you're giving up a little bit of redundancy in the early game for a lot more redundancy in the late game. You're still running everything else the same. What we're going to be doing here is you'll see that there's a lot of Andreas, Blessed Evil, as well as Aquel, Blessed Evil. This allows you to find more demons, right? Because you want to turn on Carnival turn 1. So you're going to go ahead, play your stuff out, get more demons into your hand, so that way you can sacrifice these 2 demons right away. And one of them that you absolutely want to sacrifice is Vasico, Jade Evil. Because when that's sacrificed, it'll Enercharge you. So it ends up being free Enercharge at that point, which is good. Then you'll want to go ahead and refill your field out. This is why you have more level 1s than you do in a normal deck in this version of Nova. Again, this deck gives up on control and ends up being a little bit more of a tribal mid-range deck, so you don't have any real wall of Nova that you're used to here. You build that later down the line. So this is a very, very solid way to have you're always turning on Devil's Carnival, turn 1. Your turn 2 is going to be, and this is why you maxed out on Folklores, because those are devils. You want Ishikiri Marus. You want 12 power things. With 4 Ishikiri Marus and 2 Kayasumis, plus some Falcalors, you're going to have a very good defensive level 2 slot. Luckily, one of the things is you can actually bring back Folklores over and over and over again, which will help shield up and make sure you constantly have a level 2 shield up as well. At the top end, we're running Kome. This is your normal damage output. Again, this is just one of the ways that Nova can win without a clock. You're running Exida. I know it's not a demon, but it also helps shore up late game damage where you're going to win this game. But you're going to be running Fenrir and this other card, I think it's called Glaeus. Yeah, which is right here. So, Glaeus. So let's talk about that. Fenrir freezes the opponent out, right? And with Fenrir and Komi, you can start freezing the opponent's field and not really caring what they do. And then you can go ahead and start just really ripping into them in terms of damage with just using Kome. You don't necessarily need to interact with the field. They're going to have to sacrifice their field if they're going to want to do anything, but that's where Exida comes into play a little later down the line. But if they get rid of Fenrir, you're also attacking them by making them discard cards all the time with Fenrir. You are going to be able to bring it back with your Devil's Carnival. So this is basically like constantly bringing back Fenrir. And because you're constantly bringing back Fenrir, you're constantly making your opponent discard cards. So you need less things like Random Drain. Inevitably, this brings us to our last slot, which we're going to be bringing, which is Glacia Azure Evil. We're using it for its last ability, which is you can put this into the field, into the trash, and pay 2 enter. If your opponent has 0 cards in hand, which is very likely between how much you'll be making them discard with the Fenrir as well as your Hampai Destruction, then you can vanish target Signy on the opponent's field. There's only a 2 of. You should consider it as basically a spell in this deck. But the upside is it's also a demon, which means that if the opponent continuously has 0 cards in hand, you can keep bringing this back, and for 2 enter, opening up a field, a Signy lane, constantly for you to attack through. So it's another redundant way to take advantage of Devil's Carnival to continuously put out damage. So guys, that's the update for VERTEX DIVA. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to know what you guys think about all these decks below, what you're going to continue to run, what you're choosing to run instead of the cards that I've chosen, what you've decided if this is a good jumping off point for you, what you're going to look forward for trying to do. Give me any and all thoughts down in the comments down below. And may you always flip a life burst.